In 1940, Clive Staples Lewis gave an address to the Martlets, the Literary Society of University College, Oxford, entitled The Kappa Element in Romance. Kappa he took from the initial letter of the Greek word Krypton, meaning hidden or cryptic. Lewis later worked the talk as the essay On Stories, published in 1947. And although he dropped the term kappa from this work, the hidden thing itself was still his main concern. By this stage in his career, he tended to call it by a number of different terms, of which atmosphere is the most common. Again and again, in defending works of romance, Lewis argues that it is the quality or tone of the whole story that is its main attraction. The invented world of romance is conceived with this kind of qualitative richness because romancers feel the real world itself to be cryptic, significant, full of voices and the mystery of life. In a 1934 letter addressed to Janet Spence, Lewis wrote,
"Lovers of romances go back and back to such stories in the same way that we go back to a fruit for its taste, to an air for itself, to a region for its whole atmosphere, to Donegal for its Donegality, and London for its Londonness. It is notoriously difficult to put these tastes into words."
That this atmospheric quality is virtually inexpressible leads Lewis to speak of it at times as a spiritual thing. The net of the story, the events, the characters, the background descriptions, has temporarily ensnared, as if it were an elusive bird, a sheer state of being, and for the duration of the read, this bird's plumage may be enjoyed. Enjoyment, for Lewis, was to be distinguished from contemplation, a distinction he first encountered in 1924 in the work of the philosopher Samuel Alexander, and which was important enough for him to record in his diary.
"I took Alexander's space, time and deity out of the union and went to Wadham College, where I sat and walked in the garden reading the introduction, enjoying the beauty of the place, and greatly interested by my author's truthful antithesis of enjoyment and contemplation."
He was later to describe this antithesis as an indispensable tool of thought, and his biographer and longtime friend Walter Hooper does not claim too much when he says that Alexander's book was of overwhelming importance to Lewis. He applied what we might call the Alexander technique to many departments of life, in addition to literary criticism, and he thought it so useful that he eventually wrote his own essay on the subject, entitled Meditation in a Tool Shed, in which he recast contemplation and enjoyment as follows.
"I was standing today in the dark tool shed. The sun was shining outside, and through the crack at the top of the door there came a sunbeam. From where I stood, that beam of light, with the specks of dust floating in it, was the most striking thing in the place. Everything else was almost pitch black. I was seeing the beam, not seeing things by it. Then I moved so that the beam fell on my eyes. Instantly the whole previous picture vanished. I saw no tool shed and, above all, no beam. Instead I saw, framed in the irregular cranny at the top of the door, green leaves moving on the branches of a tree outside, and beyond that, 90-odd million miles away, the sun. Looking along the beam and looking at the beam are very different experiences."
Looking along the beam is what Alexander had called enjoyment, or participant, inhabited, personal, committed knowledge, and looking at the beam is what he had called contemplation, or abstract, external, impersonal, uninvolved knowledge. For Lewis, this distinction was so fundamental that he was prepared to divide conscious knowledge accordingly. Instead of the twofold division into conscious and unconscious, we need a threefold division: the unconscious, the enjoyed, and the contemplated. Like the ancient Persians who debated everything twice, once when they were sober and once when they were drunk, we should try out every question in both lights: the light of enjoyment, similar to the French connaître, and the light of contemplation, similar to the French savoir.